Hi, and welcome to this training on how to help you with your PowerPoint presentations so that they are power and not weak presentations. My name is MichelleBrady, and I own a company called Sage Forward Training, and I also have been a communications professor of communication skills and public presentation for over 3 decades. I'd like to help you today to make sure that if you're going to use visual aids in your presentation, that they are the best visual aids that you can use. Today, a lot of people are hooked on PowerPoint. There are actually some good YouTube videos out there on the creation of PowerPoint slides and what to do to make them better. Today, in a few short slides, I'd like to show you how to have the best PowerPoint slides that you could possibly have and how to handle those slides in the presentation so that you look good, so that the slides help you and not harm you. So a couple of things that we're going to go through are what are the rules of making a good PowerPoint slide, and also what are the good presentation points that you would want to employ if you're going to put them into your program. And so let's get started. The first thing that you need to know about PowerPoint and any visual aid that you might use in a presentation is the number one rule. The number one most important thing that you have to keep in mind. And I see this rule broken all the time, so that's why we're making it number one. And that is, it has to be large enough for every single person in the audience to see it. And yet, some people don't think this through. I literally want to hold up something. I have to make sure everybody in the audience sees this visual aid. If I have a slide that I'm going to project, every single part of the slide needs to be large enough for the entire audience that I'm working with. So you have to look at the projection screen, the size of your fonts, the majority of materials. If you're using a picture, is it a picture that's large enough for the whole audience to see? If it's an object, is an object that's large enough, or are you going to pass it around for everyone to be able to see its size and what it is that you're focusing on? I don't want to say, I have a little visual right here and I know you can't see it. I know it's hard for you all to see, but let me point out something about it, and then I spend a few minutes on this aid. It isn't an aid to you if it isn't visible to the whole audience. So the number one most important thing to think about is this visual aid that I'm bringing in, is it aiding my speech? And then the next point that's also equally as important is that visual aids are just that. It's an aid to my speech. And it is true that a picture does fill in a million words. But we don't need constant pictures. And so your aids are not your speech. One of the mistakes that people make with visual aids is they put everything they want to say in the speech, and that actually infuriates your audience because they're adults usually, or people that you're speaking to, or don't want to read your speech, they want you to do your speech. And the speech aids help you to get across complex information, support what you're doing. You don't have to have a visual all the time, and you certainly don't want a visual of everything. You need to be the person delivering the content and the aid assisting you in getting your concepts and content apart or across to your individuals. Never let the visual do your speech. And so the first rules then are making sure everyone can see it, and then making sure that the actual content is being done by you and it's aiding you in your presentation. Now I have a slide that we're going to show next on how to consider the content of your PowerPoint presentation appropriately. And so this slide shows you the basic rules of PowerPoint construction. And the first one is that if it's textual or content, is that you have a header in it that explains what I'm looking at. When the audience first sees it, they're going to look at that first and they're going to read it. Does it tell me what this is about? Give it a context, give it a frame that lets them see and understand the context that follows. And then we're trained to then read the content. Make sure that the content is easy and quick to grasp fast. If you throw up a slide that's all kinds of long sentences, it's really busy, your audience will just go, and they won't read it. We have a human nature thing called the law of least effort. And as soon as you make it hard, oh, I'm just going to give up on that. I'm not even going to try. I'm going to quit on your slide. I'm going to look at you to be sharing content, but I'm not going to bother with that slide. So don't overwhelm your audience with too much content. So the rules of thumb are this, that you include no more than 5 lines with 5 words. We call it the rule of 5 by 5. 5 lines, 5 words. So if you look at your screen right now, you will see that. It's going to drop in and it says that you have text that says conclude your text, just 3 words, short, simple, brief, fragments, not full sentences, maximum 5 lines, and that the minimum font is large enough for someone to see. Let me give you a rule of thumb that isn't on there, and we call it the pinky rule. And that pinky rule means that in a projected state up on a screen, can you measure the length, the width of that letter to be at least the length of your finger? If it isn't at least the length of your finger, it's not projecting large enough to be read by a normal audience that would be maybe 10 to 15 feet from your screen or whatever it is that you're projecting on. Anything smaller is too small for the audience in order to see it. So we usually say that that's between 28 and 32 font in your screen font choices, making sure that you have a size that hits about that. So there's a little bit of information on the slide to show you that and what a normal and simple PowerPoint should look like. If you use a graphic at all, it should be one and it should be simple and not too many graphics, and I'm going to point that out in a few minutes too. So in the next slide, I want to show you these font sizes, and that a large header is anywhere between 48 and a little larger depending on the amount of size that you have across your screen. You should not have your headers go into 2 lines unless you absolutely crucially need 2 lines of content. And then 35 to 45 for your main points. Nothing smaller than 28 because it's too small for your audience in order to see, and you broke the #1 rule, being large enough so everybody can see it. The next thing is that you want to present one concept at a time. One of the hardest things for audiences to do is see a slide go up that has everything you plan to say all at once. If you've seen PowerPoint slides that are done well, one concept can come in and then another concept the next one and then another concept the next one. And it looks like this. Same concept in that former slide, 4 to 6 lines of content, then the next one comes in. 40 letters per line, then the next one comes in. Phrases, not sentences, and I end with simple typeface. I didn't throw all those at you at once. They were one at a time. And when I bring them in one at a time, it looks better. The audience can handle the introduction of concepts one at a time. Now, you don't have to do that all the time. If your slide is very simple and it doesn't have a lot of stuff to take in right away, you can throw up that slide as long as the audience doesn't feel overwhelmed. But when you have a lot of content to bring in, it's better to do it one at a time, and it makes it easier. The next concept, color. Careful with color. Careful. Color may look good on a preparation screen, but in reality, in the presentation screen, it washes out. And so let me give you an example right here in our slide, and that is the bold primary colors of green look okay on your main screen, but sometimes projected they look washed out. The best colors are blue, black, and red. And then some people say a reverse background, which I'll show you in the next slide. But look what happens when I use yellow or pastels. You almost can't see it. It looks fine on a little small computer, but it does not look fine in a projected video. So you do have to be careful with the fact that projection washes out the color, and I would recommend that you stay away from any pastel color because it simply does not project. This is a unique way to present. A lot of people feel that white is harsh for some people's eyes to look at all the time, especially under fluorescent lights. So if you want to make your presentation easy, especially if you don't have a lot of slides, put a dark background with a lesser harsh color than white. Blue on yellow tends to be the way that people enjoy seeing that. One of the most recommended approaches is to put a blue background like you're seeing here in this injected slide with a yellow base. Something calmer about this presentation. And so a lot of people like this better especially if there's not a lot of slides, but it helps to calm down the harsh white that can come across. Now the next thing is to look at slides. In the first projection of this slide, there's only one picture with a couple of words. That's pretty good. When I show all of the pictures that are in it, it becomes overwhelming and distracted. So look at the difference between the first slide with just one picture and then the next slide with too many pictures all over it. Overuse of graphics can reduce the power and the appeal of your presentation slides. So not using too many graphics is a key idea. One or two max. There has to be a purpose to them. Let them really help your visual aid, not hurt your visual aid. And then we're almost done. And that is that when you do your presentation handling, I want to show you how to stand next to it and how to move with it. So here we are to show you how to present with your visual. Now it also depends on the size of your screen and the performance environment that you'll be in. In some cases you will not be next to your screen as I am right here. In some cases they're projected up on a wall that's high. And if that's the case, these ideas will still work just as well that I want to show you. The first thing you notice right here is that I'm on a blank screen. When I'm just talking to you and I don't have content that you need to see that has nothing to do with anything I'm saying right now, they don't need to see a visual behind me for no reason. So if you have nothing up that is about what you're talking about right now, this should be blank and not have anything in there at all. There are a couple of ways to blank your screen if you have a computer projected visual. One is to just hit the B key, which means black or blank, and then hit it again, brings it back or restores it so that everyone can see it. If you're using a clicker like I have, and I think that all professionals should invest in these, very inexpensive, $15, you can just simply hit this item when you're ready to bring in your projected visual and unblank it. It also saves the light and battery in your projected equipment, which is also another little additional benefit. So when I do want to project my visual, here's what I need to do. I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to show you what I want to do. I'm talking to you, and I'm sharing with you, and now I purposefully want to go to my visual. I'm going to be quiet when I first let it come up because the audience is taking it in. I let them have a second or two to take it in while I settle my posture and position next to the visual. I'm going to get into it and near it because if I don't, we call it splitting. An example of splitting is that I would be over here talking and the visual's over there, and the audience doesn't know which one to look at. And for a while they're going to look at the visual, then they're going to come back to you, then look at the visual. Don't make them split. Put yourself near your projected visual. Now this doesn't work if they're big jumbotrons on both sides of the screen. In that case, the advice is to always stand in the center so that you're between them and they can pick and look behind you or see it over your shoulder. But when you can get near it like this, you want to settle yourself within an arm's length away so that you can guide them through the information that's on the screen. The next thing that we recommend is that you literally point to the information that you want them to see. And so while I'm referencing it or actually referring to it, I'm going to put my hand up. Now because of speech fear, you could be shaking. So there is a way of doing this so that the audience doesn't see that little problem that you might be having so that you still look confident and credible. And that is that you use your whole arm and you actually lock your bicep. And you put your hand into a strong, if you would, straight, almost pointer instead of one finger. You put your hands together and lock them. That also helps them to not be visually shaking. And then you reach with your elbow bent so that your bicep is actually flexed, and you can then control your hand and arm from moving too much and point to the item that you want them to see. Here's another thing that's important about that. You're going to watch this on your video, but if you're not watching it, I'll try to describe it. And that is that I want to turn my body and look at the information and point to it, but hold my arm there and look back at the audience. They are now understanding that I'm talking about this point. And I'm not going to move from talking to this point until I point to the next thing. But if I'm going to keep talking about this point, I can drop my arm now. They are now knowing I'm on this point. We haven't moved. I'm still talking about this. And until I point to the next item, that will move them through to the next content. So let me show you though what you would do if you were using this pointing idea with PowerPoint that brings in its tools. So one of the slides that we showed you before is that each item comes in one at a time. If the item is coming in one at a time, I actually do not need to point to it because it's doing that for me. I don't need to point. Instead, I could look at it when I bring it in and then turn around and talk to you about it. And then I would bring it in, look at it because they're looking at it, and then I look back at them and talk to you about it. Some really awesome speakers can learn where their slides are going to be coming in, hit it, and still be talking about it without ever looking at it. That makes you look really cool for your audience because they know you know your content. They know you know what you're presenting, and it's giving them something to listen to both the slide and you at the same time. It can be a really cool addition, is to plan and move with your slides. That takes a lot of rehearsal and practice to get to that point, but it is a nice little touch that can make your presentation just awesome. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do that by reaching me through my webpage, Sage Forward Training, or via email at mbrady@sageforward.com. I look forward to helping you talk better so that you can present yourself the best that you are able. Thanks for listening.